Captain Jake Morrison stood at the viewing window of the exploration ship New Frontier, watching the stars drift past like tiny diamonds scattered across black velvet. He had been in space for 18 months now, leading humanity's first deep exploration mission beyond the Proxima system. The ship hummed quietly around him, carrying his small crew further from Earth than any human had ever traveled. "Captain, we're picking up something strange on the sensors," called Lisa Rodriguez from the pilot's seat. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her brown eyes focused intently on the glowing displays before her. Jake walked over to look at the readings. The sensors showed a cluster of objects moving through space in a pattern that seemed too organized to be natural. "What do you think, Danny?" "Asteroid field." Danny Clark looked up from his engineering station, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. He was a big man with gentle eyes who could fix anything that broke on the ship. "Doesn't look like rocks to me, Captain. Those things are moving with purpose." Amy Turner, the ship's scientist who studied alien life, joined them at the sensor display. She was young and eager, always excited to discover something new. "The energy signatures are definitely artificial. We might be looking at our first contact with alien technology." Jake felt his heart speed up. They had hoped to find signs of alien life on this mission, but actually encountering it was different from just hoping. "All right, people. Let's take this slow and careful, Lisa. Bring us to a safe distance. Danny, make sure all systems are running perfectly. Amy, start recording everything you can." As the New Frontier moved closer, the objects became clearer on their screens. They were ships, but unlike anything humans had ever built. The vessels were long and sleek, with dark metal surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Sharp edges and angular designs made them look dangerous, like weapons floating through space. "I count 12 ships," Lisa reported. "They're arranged in a hunting formation." "How do you know it's a hunting formation?" Jake asked. "Because that's exactly how wolves hunt in packs back on Earth," Amy said quietly. "They surround their prey from multiple angles, cutting off escape routes. Before anyone could respond, the alien ships suddenly changed direction. They moved with incredible speed and precision, turning toward the New Frontier like sharks sensing blood in the water. "They've seen us," Danny said, his voice tight with worry. Jake's mind raced through their options. They were too far from Earth to call for help, and their single ship was no match for 12 alien vessels. "Lisa, can we outrun them?" "Not a chance, Captain. They're faster than us by a huge margin." The alien ships closed in rapidly, surrounding the New Frontier just as Amy had predicted. Jake watched as the largest ship moved directly in front of them, blocking their path forward. The other ships took positions around them, creating a perfect trap. "Incoming transmission," Danny announced. "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing the interior of the alien ship. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The creature looking back at them was like nothing he had ever imagined. It stood nearly 9 feet tall, with a body covered in dark armor-like plates that looked harder than steel. Its face was angular and predatory, with eyes that glowed with a cold, calculating intelligence. Sharp claws extended from its hands, and its mouth revealed rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh. "I am Commander Zethkar of the Kithara hunting pack." The creature spoke in perfect English, though its voice was deep and threatening. "Your species has been identified and cataloged. You will be added to our collection." Jake stepped forward, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel New Frontier. We come in peace. We're not looking for trouble." Zethkar's mouth curved in what might have been a smile, but there was no warmth in it. "Peace is a concept for prey species. The Kithara are hunters. We have claimed over 300 different species across this galaxy. You will be number 301. "We're not interested in being anyone's prey," Jake said firmly. "We're explorers just trying to learn about the galaxy." "Your interests are irrelevant," Zethkar replied. "For 10,000 years, the Kithara have been the apex predators of this galaxy. We track, we hunt, we claim. No species has ever escaped us. Once we have marked them for the hunt." Amy leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "How many species have you encountered that fought back?" Zethkar's eyes focused on her with interest. They all fight back. Young one, it makes the hunt more entertaining, but fighting and winning are different things entirely. Your species appears to be small, soft, and weak. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced abilities. You will provide little challenge. Don't be so sure about that, Jake said. Quietly, the alien commander laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Observe your situation. Human, 12 ships against 1. Over 200 Kithara warriors against 4 humans. We have been perfecting the art of hunting for millennia, while your species was still learning to make fire. Danny spoke up from his station. Captain, they're scanning our ship. They're learning everything about our technology, our weapons, our defenses. Let them look, Jake said, never taking his eyes off Zethkar. Maybe they'll learn something important. The only thing we need to learn is which parts of your ship to breach first, Zethkar said. We will board your vessel in exactly 1 hour. Use that time to prepare yourselves. Some species prefer to die fighting. Others choose to surrender and die quickly. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the 4 humans alone with their fear and their rapidly beating hearts. Well, that could have gone better, Lisa said, trying to lighten the mood despite the tremor in her voice. An hour, Danny said. What can we possibly do in an hour against creatures like that? Amy was already moving toward her laboratory station. We can learn, Jake. We need to know everything about these Kithar. Their biology, their technology, their weaknesses. You think they have weaknesses? Jake asked. Everything has weaknesses, Amy replied. Even apex predators, especially apex predators. They've been at the top of the food chain for so long, they might have forgotten what it's like to face real opposition. Jake nodded slowly. All right, people, we've got 1 hour to figure out how to survive the impossible. Danny, I want you to look at every system on this ship. Find ways to use our technology that its designers never intended. Lisa, study their ship movement. Look for patterns, predictable behaviors, anything we can use against them. What about you, Captain? Lisa asked. Jake walked back to the viewing window, looking out at the alien ships surrounding them. I'm going to think about what it means to be human. These Kithara see us as just another prey species. But they don't understand what makes us different from every other species they've hunted. What makes us different? Danny asked. Jake turned back to his crew, and for the first time since the aliens had appeared, he smiled. We're not just individuals trying to survive. We're a team. We're family. And humans have never been very good at giving up, especially when we're protecting the people we care about. As the hour countdown began, the 4 humans got to work. They had no idea if they could survive what was coming, but they were determined to show the galaxy's deadliest hunters that humanity was unlike any prey they had ever encountered. Outside the ship, the Kithara prepared for what they expected to be an easy hunt. They had no way of knowing that they were about to face something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The apex predators were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous creatures are the ones who refuse to be prey. Asterisk. The hour passed too quickly. Jake Morrison watched the countdown timer reach 0, knowing that his crew had done everything they could to prepare. Amy Turner had discovered important information about Kithara biology from their transmitted images. Danny Clark had rigged several ship systems in ways that would surprise any boarders. Lisa Rodriguez had studied the alien ship movements and found small patterns in their behavior. Here they come, Lisa announced as 3 Kithara ships moved closer to the new frontier. Jake could see the boarding tubes extending from the alien vessels, reaching toward his ship like metal tentacles. The sound of contact echoed through the hull as the tubes locked onto the airlock doors. Remember the plan, Jake told his crew. We're not trying to win a fight. We're trying to survive long enough to learn more about them. The first airlock door exploded inward with a shower of sparks and twisted metal. The Kithara warriors poured through the opening like a dark tide of claws and armor. They moved with deadly grace, their glowing eyes scanning the corridor for targets. Jake had expected them to be impressive, but seeing them in person was different. Each warrior stood nearly 9 feet tall, their chitinous armor gleaming under the ship's lights. Their claws clicked against the metal floor as they advanced, and their movements were fluid and precise. "Humans," one of the warriors called out, in a voice like grinding stone, "show yourselves. The hunt begins now." But the corridor was empty. The Cathara had expected to find cowering prey, but instead found only silence and shadows. "They're hiding," another warrior said with what sounded like amusement. "How predictable! All prey species attempt to hide when the hunt begins." The lead warrior gestured for his team to spread out and search the ship. They moved confidently through the corridors, their enhanced senses tracking for any sign of human presence. They had done this countless times before with hundreds of different species. The first surprise came when they reached the engine room. The lead warrior triggered a motion sensor, and suddenly the corridor filled with superheated steam from the ship's heating system. The Cathara stumbled backward, their thermal vision overwhelmed by the sudden temperature change. "Clever," the lead warrior admitted as the steam cleared. "But tricks will not save them." In the ship's control room, Danny Clark watched the Cathara through security cameras. The steam slowed them down, but they adapted quickly. Their armor protected them from the heat. "That's okay," Amy said, studying readings on her tablet. "We learned something important. Their thermal vision is sensitive to sudden temperature changes." "We can use that," Jake nodded. "What else did you discover about their biology?" "Their armor is incredibly strong, but it has joints that need to flex when they move. Those joints are vulnerable points. Also, their enhanced senses can be overloaded. Too much input confuses them temporarily." Lisa was watching the Cathara search pattern on her screens. "They're being systematic, but they're also being arrogant. They expect us to act like typical prey animals. Then let's show them something different," Jake said. The second surprise came when a group of Cathara entered the ship's laboratory. Amy had left several chemical compounds in open containers, and when the aliens' movements disturbed the air currents, the chemicals mixed together. The reaction created a bright flash of light and a loud noise that echoed through the ship. The Cathara warriors stumbled backward, their enhanced hearing temporarily damaged by the sound. One of them roared in anger and frustration. "They're using their own ship against us," the warrior complained to his team leader. "Impossible," the leader replied. "Prey species do not have the intelligence for such tactics. This must be coincidence." But the third surprise proved that coincidence had nothing to do with it. When the Cathara tried to access the ship's main computer, they found that Danny had reprogrammed the entire system. Instead of ship information, the computer screen showed rapidly flashing patterns of light and color. The flashing patterns were designed based on Amy's analysis of Cathara neural responses. The rapid changes in light confused their brain chemistry, causing dizziness and disorientation. "This is not normal prey behavior," one of the younger warriors said as he staggered away from the flashing screen. "All species fight back," the leader insisted, but his voice carried less certainty than before. "These humans are simply more creative than most." Meanwhile, Jake and his crew were moving through the ship's maintenance tunnels, staying ahead of the Cathara search teams. They could hear the aliens talking to each other, and Amy was recording their language patterns. "They're getting frustrated," she whispered. "Their hunting instincts are based on fear and panic from their prey, but we're not acting afraid enough for their comfort." "Good," Jake said quietly. "Fear makes prey predictable. If we're not predictable, we're not easy prey." The fourth surprise came when the Cathara finally cornered Lisa in the ship's cargo bay. She was alone, apparently trapped with no way to escape. The three warriors approached her slowly, savoring what they thought was their first capture. Finally, the lead warrior said, "One human is secure. Tell us where the others are hiding, and we will make your death quick." Lisa looked up at them with calm eyes. "I'm not hiding. I'm exactly where I want to be." She pressed a button on the control panel beside her. Suddenly, the cargo bay doors opened, and the vacuum of space began pulling everything toward the opening. The Cathara, caught off guard, struggled to maintain their footing as the ship's artificial gravity fought against the pull of the vacuum. Lisa had already secured herself to a support beam with a safety harness. She watched as the three warriors were drawn toward the open doors, their heavy armor working against them for the first time. One warrior managed to grab onto a cargo container, but the other two tumbled toward the opening. Only their quick reflexes and magnetic clamps on their boots saved them from being pulled into space. Impossible! One of them shouted over the rushing air. How did she know we would corner her here? Lisa smiled. Because I led you here. I wanted you in this exact spot. She pressed another button, and the cargo door slammed shut. The sudden pressure change knocked the Cathera off balance once again. Commander Zethkar's voice crackled through the communication system. Report. What is happening on that ship? The humans are not behaving like prey. One of his warriors responded. They are setting traps, using their ship's systems as weapons, and showing no fear. All species show fear when hunted, Zethkar replied. You are simply not hunting properly. Find them and bring them to me. But the Kitharea were discovering that finding the humans was not as simple as it should have been. Every time they thought they had cornered their prey, they found another surprise waiting for them. Jake led his team through a series of connected maintenance shafts. Staying mobile and unpredictable, they could hear the Cathera growing more frustrated with each passing minute. Captain, Danny whispered, I've been monitoring their communications. They're starting to doubt themselves. They've never encountered prey that fights back this effectively. How long can we keep this up? Lisa asked. As long as we need to, Jake replied. But more importantly, we're learning their weaknesses. Amy, what have you discovered? Amy checked her notes. Their armor is strong but heavy. It slows them down in confined spaces. Their enhanced senses can be overloaded with the right stimuli. And most importantly, they're not used to prey that thinks ahead and plans. They're hunters, not soldiers, Jake realized. They're used to chasing frightened animals, not fighting an organized enemy. That's exactly right, Amy said. They have all the tools they need to be perfect predators, but they don't know how to handle prey that refuses to be predictable. As the hunt continued through the ship's corridors, both sides were learning valuable lessons. The Cathara were discovering that not all prey species were helpless victims. The humans were learning that even the galaxy's deadliest hunters had weaknesses that could be exploited. The real battle was just beginning, and neither side was prepared for what would come next. But one thing was becoming clear. Humanity was not going to be another easy trophy for the Cathera collection. Commander Zethkar paced back and forth on his ship's command deck, his claws clicking against the metal floor. His hunting pack had been aboard the human vessel for 3 hours, and they still had not captured a single human. This had never happened before in his 500 years of hunting. Status report, he growled into his communication device. The humans continued to evade capture, came the reply from his lead warrior. They moved through their ship like they know every hidden passage. Every time we corner them, they escape using methods we have never seen before. Zethkar's eyes blazed with anger. They are 4 small creatures on one ship. You are the galaxy's finest hunters. This should have been finished hours ago. Commander, with respect, these humans are not like other prey species. They work together in ways we have not encountered. They turn their own ship into a weapon against us, then adapt. Zethkar snarled. That is what hunters do. We adapt to our prey. But adaptation was exactly what the Cathara were struggling with. For 10,000 years, they had hunted species that ran in fear, hid in panic, or fought desperately without coordination. The humans were doing something completely different. On the new frontier, Jake Morrison huddled with his crew in a storage compartment deep in the ship's belly. They had been moving constantly for hours, staying ahead of the Cathara search teams. How many more tricks do we have? Danny asked quietly. Enough, Jake replied, though he knew their options were running out. Amy, what else have you learned about them? Amy pulled out her tablet, which showed readings she had been taking during their encounters with the aliens. Their coordination is their biggest strength, but it might also be a weakness. They communicate through bioelectric fields that connect their nervous systems. It lets them work together perfectly. But if we could disrupt those fields, they would lose their pack coordination. Lisa finished. They would become individual hunters instead of a unified team. Exactly, Amy said. And individual hunters are easier to deal with than a coordinated pack. Jake nodded. Can you create something to disrupt their bioelectric fields? Maybe. I need access to the ship's main power systems and about 30 minutes of uninterrupted work. You'll have it, Jake promised. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity was about to learn that their exploration ship was in terrible danger. Admiral Kate Phillips stood in the command center of Earth's Space Defense Force, staring at a message that had just arrived through quantum communication. When was this sent? She asked her communications officer 18 hours ago. Admiral, it took this long to reach us because of the distance. The message was brief but terrifying. Encountered hostile alien hunters. 12 ships. Request immediate assistance. May not survive. Jake Morrison, Captain. New Frontier. Admiral Phillips had served in space for 20 years, but she had never faced anything like this. Humanity's first contact with alien life was a battle for survival. How long would it take our fastest ships to reach them? She asked. 6 weeks at maximum speed. Admiral, 6 weeks. The New Frontier crew would be dead long before help could arrive. But Admiral Phillips was not ready to give up on them. Send a message to every ship in the fleet. I want every vessel that can fly to prepare for immediate departure. Military ships, cargo vessels, mining platforms, everything. Admiral, most of those ships are not equipped for combat. Then we'll equip them, she replied firmly, and send word to every human colony. If there are alien hunters out there, they might not stop with one ship. Humanity needs to be ready to defend itself. Back on the New Frontier, Amy was working frantically to build a device that could disrupt Kythera bioelectric communication. She had torn apart 3 different ship systems to get the components she needed. How much longer? Jake asked as he watched the corridor for approaching hunters. 10 more minutes, Amy replied without looking up from her work. We might not have 10 minutes, Danny warned. I can hear them getting closer. Jake made a decision. Lisa, Danny, go, lead them away. From here, buy Amy the time she needs. What about you? Lisa asked. I'm staying to protect Amy. If those hunters get to her before she finishes, we're all dead. Lisa and Danny nodded and slipped out of the storage compartment. They began making noise in a different part of the ship, drawing the Kythera away. From Amy's location, Commander Zethkar was losing patience. He decided to board the human ship himself to see what was taking so long. When he stepped through the airlock, he could immediately sense the difference from a normal hunt. The ship felt wrong. There was no smell of fear, no sounds of panic. Instead, there was only an eerie calm that made his hunting instincts feel confused. Where are the humans now? He asked his warriors. They were last detected in Section 7, but by the time we arrived, they had moved again. Zethkar studied the ship's layout on a portable scanner. This vessel is too small to hide in forever. They are running out of places to go. But what Zethkar did not understand was that the humans were not just hiding, they were preparing. Amy's fingers flew over her improvised device, connecting circuits and calibrating frequencies. She could hear the Kythera getting closer. There, heavy footsteps echoing through the ship's corridors. Almost finished, she whispered to Jake. Good, because I think our time is up, Jake replied. Hearing voices approaching their location, the storage compartment door suddenly exploded inward, and 3 Kythera warriors pushed through the opening. They saw Jake standing protectively in front of Amy, and their eyes glowed with satisfaction. Finally, one of them said, "The hunt ends now." Actually, Amy said, looking up from her device, the hunt is just beginning. She activated her disruptor. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The 3 Kythera warriors suddenly staggered as if they had been struck by invisible hammers. Their perfect coordination disappeared, and they began moving in jerky, uncontrolled motions. Throughout the New Frontier, every Kythera warrior felt the same disruption. Their bioelectric communication network collapsed, leaving each hunter alone and confused for the first time in their lives. What is happening? One warrior called out, but received no response from his packmates. The connection is broken, another warrior said in panic. I cannot sense the others. Commander Zethkar felt the disruption more powerfully than anyone. As the pack leader, he had been the central hub of their communication network. When it collapsed, he experienced something he had never felt before. True isolation. Clever humans, he said with genuine respect. You have found a weakness we did not know we possessed. But the humans were not finished. With the Cathera coordination broken, Jake activated the ship's intercom system and spoke to every warrior on board. Attention, Cathera hunters. You are no longer a pack. You are individuals, alone and isolated in an unfamiliar environment. We know this ship better than you do. We know how to work together, while you have forgotten how to work alone. His words had exactly the effect he intended. The Cathera, who had spent their entire lives as part of a unified hunting pack, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy while cut off from their greatest strength. Lisa and Danny began using this advantage immediately. They appeared at different locations throughout the ship, forcing individual Cathera to chase them in different directions. Without their pack coordination, the hunters could not support each other or plan unified strategies. Amy continued to refine her disruptor device, strengthening the signal that kept the Cathera bioelectric network scrambled. She also began analyzing the feedback from their nervous systems, learning even more about their biology. Jake, she said excitedly, I'm getting readings that show exactly how their enhanced sensors work. I think I can overload them completely. Do it, Jake replied. Amy made adjustments to her device and activated a new function. Suddenly, every Cathera on the ship was hit with sensory overload. Their enhanced hearing picked up every tiny sound amplified to painful levels. Their thermal vision was flooded with false heat signatures. Their enhanced smell was overwhelmed with conflicting scents. The mighty hunters, who had relied on their superior senses for millennia, found themselves blind, deaf, and helpless in the very abilities that had made them apex predators. Commander Zetkar realized that something unprecedented was happening. His perfect hunters were being defeated by 4 humans who refused to behave like prey. For the first time in his long life, he considered the possibility of retreat, but retreat was not in the Cathera nature. They were hunters, and hunters did not run from prey. That decision would prove to be their biggest mistake yet. Commander Zetkar stumbled through the corridors of the new frontier, his enhanced senses betraying him at every step. The sensory overload created by Amy's device made him feel like he was drowning in a sea of false signals. Every sound was too loud, every light too bright, every smell too strong. Retreat to the ships, he commanded through his communication device. But he wasn't even sure if his warriors could hear him through the interference. One by one, the Cathera hunters began stumbling back toward their boarding tubes. Their perfect coordination was gone, replaced by confusion and desperation. Some warriors got lost in the ship's corridors, unable to trust their compromised senses to guide them. Jake Morrison watched them leave through the security cameras, but he felt no satisfaction in their retreat. He knew this was only the beginning. They're leaving, Lisa reported from the pilot station. For now, Jake replied, but they'll be back with more ships and better preparation. Amy, how long can your device keep working? Amy looked up from her equipment, exhaustion clear on her face. The disruptor will keep their bioelectric communication scrambled as long as they're within range. But if they get far enough away, they can re-establish contact with their main fleet. Then we need to get out of here before that happens, Danny said. No, Jake said firmly. If we run, they'll just follow us back to Earth. We need to end this here. Lisa stared at him in disbelief. Jake, there are 12 Cathera ships out there. How can 4 humans possibly fight an entire alien fleet? We can't, Jake admitted, but we don't have to. We just need to survive long enough for help to arrive. Meanwhile, in the Cathera command ship, Zetkar was experiencing something completely new, doubt. He stood in his private chamber, studying the data his warriors had collected about human behavior. They do not act like prey, he said to his second-in-command, a veteran hunter named Drakta. Every other species we have encountered follows predictable patterns. They run, they hide, they panic, they die. These humans do none of these things. Drakta was equally puzzled. Perhaps they are simply a more advanced prey species. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, but they use it in ways we have never seen. It is more than that, Zetkar replied. They work together with perfect unity, yet they maintain individual creativity. They show no fear, yet they are clearly aware of the danger they face. They fight as if they have been preparing for this moment their entire lives. What do you recommend, Commander? Zethkar turned to look out at the small human ship floating in the distance. We contact the High Command. We request additional hunting packs. Director S. eyes widened in shock. Commander, the High Command has never been forced to send reinforcements. For a single prey species, they will question our competence. Let them question, Zethkar said grimly. I would rather face their judgment than lose an entire hunting pack to 4 humans. The message was sent across the galaxy through key Thera communication networks. Within hours, 5 additional hunting packs began moving toward human space. Word of the unusual hunt spread through alien civilizations that had lived in fear of the Cathera for centuries. On the planet Velkin, a species of peaceful traders heard the news with amazement. The humans made the Cathara retreat. One of them asked in disbelief, "That is impossible. Perhaps the galaxy is changing." Another replied hopefully, "Perhaps the age of the hunters is finally ending." Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Species that had hidden from the Kithara for generations began to whisper about the small, soft humans who refused to die quietly back on Earth. Admiral Kate Phillips stood before the largest gathering of spacecraft in human history. Military vessels, cargo ships, mining platforms, and even converted civilian craft filled the space around Earth's orbital stations. "This is not the first contact scenario we planned for," she told the assembled captains through video communication. "We hoped to meet aliens in peace. Instead, we're going to war to save 4 of our own." Captain Ron Bailey of the converted cargo ship Freedom's Light spoke up. "Admiral, most of our ships are not designed for combat. How can we fight creatures that have been hunting across the galaxy for thousands of years? The same way our people on the new frontier are fighting them," Admiral Phillips replied. "With intelligence, creativity, and a refusal to give up, the Cathera are used to hunting individuals and small groups. They've never faced an entire species that fights." As one engineer, Helen Cross, who had been studying the technical data sent from the new frontier, added her analysis. "The aliens' technology is advanced but specialized for hunting. Their ships are fast and well-armed, but they're designed for overwhelming individual targets. They might not be prepared for large-scale fleet combat." Dr. Patricia Green, a psychologist who specialized in alien behavior, had been analyzing the Cathara communication patterns that Amy had recorded. "Their entire culture is built around the hunt," she explained. "They have no concept of warfare between equals because they've never encountered equals. They think in terms of predator and prey, not soldier and soldier." Admiral Phillips nodded. "Then we're going to teach them a new way of thinking. All ships prepare for departure. We're bringing our people home." The massive human fleet began moving toward the coordinates where the new frontier was trapped. It would take weeks to reach them, but they were coming. On the new frontier, Ahmed had been working non-stop to improve their defenses. She had created additional disruptor devices and placed them throughout the ship. She had also been studying the Cathara technology left behind by the retreating warriors. "Jake, look at this," she said excitedly, showing him readings on her tablet. "Their weapons and armor are incredibly advanced, but they're all designed for close combat hunting. They have almost no long-range capabilities. What does that mean for us?" Jake asked. "It means they have to get close to be dangerous. If we can keep them at a distance, we have a better chance of survival." Danny had been modifying the ship's engines and weapon systems. "I've boosted our engine output by 30%. We're still not faster than them, but we're more maneuverable. I've also rigged the ship's mining lasers to work as weapons." "Mining lasers?" Lisa asked. "They're designed to cut through asteroids," Danny explained. "If they can cut rock, they can cut Kitera armor." Jake felt a spark of hope. His crew was adapting and improving their situation, even while surrounded by the galaxy's most dangerous predators. "What else can we do?" Amy pulled up her analysis of Cathera psychology. "I've been studying their behavior patterns from our encounters. They're used to being feared and respected. They expect their prey to be intimidated by their reputation. But what if we turn that around?" "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "What if we made them afraid of us?" Lisa smiled. "You want to hunt the hunters?" "Exactly," Amy said. "They're coming back with more ships because they think numbers will solve their problem. But what if we make them realize that numbers won't? Help against an enemy that thinks differently than any prey they've ever encountered. Jake looked around at his crew. 18 months ago, they had been explorers seeking peaceful contact with alien life. Now they were planning to wage psychological warfare against the galaxy's apex predators. All right, he said, let's show the Kithara what happens when they try to hunt humanity. 3 days later, the reinforcement fleets arrived. Zethkar now commanded 6 hunting packs with over 300 warriors and 70 ships. It was the largest hunting force ever assembled for a single prey species. This time will be different, he told his assembled commanders. We will not underestimate them again. But as the massive Kithara fleet surrounded the tiny human ship, they had no idea that they were about to face something completely unprecedented in the galaxy's history. They were about to learn that sometimes when you hunt the most dangerous prey, the prey decides to hunt you back. The real battle was about to begin, and neither side was prepared for what would happen when humanity stopped running and started fighting. Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of his command ship, looking at the massive fleet surrounding the tiny human vessel. 70 Kithara ships arranged in perfect hunting formation, their dark hulls gleaming in the starlight. Over 300 of the galaxy's deadliest warriors ready to end this embarrassing situation once and for all. Begin the final hunt, he commanded. But before the Kithara could move, something unexpected happened. The new frontier suddenly launched dozens of small objects into space around their ship. The objects spread out in all directions, creating a cloud of debris around the human vessel. What are they doing? Director asked. Scanning the objects now, a technician reported. They appear to be modified communication devices and sensor equipment. Zethkar frowned. Communication devices? Are they calling for help? The answer came seconds later. Every Kithara ship in the fleet suddenly received the same transmission. But instead of desperate pleas for mercy, they heard something that chilled them to their core. Human music began playing through their speakers. Not just any music, but a carefully chosen piece that Amy Turner had selected based on her study of Kithara psychology. The music was complex and layered, showing creativity and emotional depth that the hunting-focused Kithara had never experienced. Turn it off, Zethkar ordered. We cannot, Commander. The signal is being broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously. It is overriding our communication systems. As the music played, images began appearing on every Kithara screen. Pictures of Earth, showing vast cities full of billions of humans working together. Images of human art, literature, and scientific achievements. Videos of human families, friends, and communities supporting each other through difficulties. The psychological impact was immediate. The Kithara had spent their entire existence thinking of other species as prey animals to be hunted and killed. But these images showed them something they had never imagined, a civilization built on cooperation, creativity, and care for others. This is impossible, one of the younger Kithara commanders said. Prey species do not build civilizations like this. They are still prey, Zethkar insisted. But his voice lacked its usual certainty. The transmission continued, and Jake Morrison's voice filled every Kithara ship. People of the Kithara, you see us as prey, because that is all you have ever known. But we are not prey. We are builders, creators, and protectors. We have traveled across the galaxy not to hunt, but to learn and to make friends with other species. Amy had planned this psychological assault carefully. She knew that the Kithara had never encountered a species that fought back effectively, and they had certainly never seen anything like human civilization. You call yourselves hunters, Jake continued, but what have you built? What have you created? What legacy will you leave behind except fear and death? We offer you something different. We offer you the chance to be more than hunters. On dozens of Kithara ships, young warriors began looking at each other with confusion and doubt. They had been taught that hunting was the highest purpose in life, but these humans were showing them possibilities they had never imagined. Commander Zethkar realized that his warriors were being affected by the human transmission. All ships, attack immediately. Do not listen to their words. But before the Kithara fleet could move, space around them suddenly filled with new ships. Admiral Kate Phillips had arrived with the largest human fleet ever assembled. The contrast was stunning. The Cathara ships were sleek and deadly, designed for hunting and killing. The human ships were a mix of military vessels, cargo haulers, mining platforms, and converted civilian craft. They looked like a collection of tools rather than weapons of war. "This is Admiral Phillips of the Human Defense Fleet," came the transmission to all ships in the area. "You have threatened our people and our ship. We are here to bring them home." Zethkar stared at the human fleet in disbelief. There were hundreds of ships, far more than his hunting force. But more disturbing than their numbers was their formation. The humans were not arranged for individual combat like Cathara hunting packs. They were organized as a unified force, each ship supporting the others in perfect coordination. "Impossible," Drakta whispered. "How can so many ships work together as one?" The answer came when the human fleet began to move. Instead of charging forward like typical prey animals in panic, they executed a complex maneuver that surrounded the Cathara force from all sides. Every human ship knew exactly where to go and what to do. Captain Ron Bailey of the converted cargo ship Freedom's Light was part of the human formation. His ship had been carrying grain to Mars just weeks ago, but now it was armed with improvised weapons and crewed by volunteers who had never seen combat. Yet he moved his vessel with the precision of a veteran warrior, because hundreds of other captains were doing the same thing. "Target the Cathara command ship," Admiral Phillips ordered, "but do not fire unless they fire first. We are here to rescue our people, not to start a war." The human fleet's weapons locked onto Cathara ships. Throughout the formation, the aliens suddenly found themselves in the unfamiliar position of being the ones surrounded and outnumbered. "Commander," one of Zethkar's officers reported, "they have superior numbers and positioning. We are at a tactical disadvantage." For the first time in his long life, Zethkar felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of death, which all hunters understood, but fear of the unknown. These humans were unlike any species he had ever encountered. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. Jake Morrison's face appeared on the main screen of the Cathara command ship. Behind him stood his crew, all looking tired but determined. "I am Commander Zethkar of the Cathara. You have fought well, humans, better than any prey species in our history. But this ends now. Surrender, and we will make your deaths quick." Jake smiled, and there was no fear in his expression. "Commander, I think you misunderstand the situation. We're not surrendering. We're offering you a choice." "What choice?" Amy Turner stepped forward, holding her tablet with all the data she had collected about Cathara biology and psychology. "We've learned a lot about your species during our encounters. You're incredibly advanced hunters, but you've spent so long hunting that you've forgotten how to do anything else." "Hunting is the highest purpose," Zethkar replied, but his words sounded hollow even to himself. "Is it?" Amy asked. "What happens when there's nothing left to hunt? What happens when you've killed every other species in the galaxy? What will the Cathara do then?" The question hit the Cathara like a physical blow. In 10,000 years of hunting, they had never considered what would happen when their success was complete. Danny Clark joined the conversation. "We've seen your technology, your ships, your weapons. You have incredible skills and abilities. Imagine what you could build if you used those skills for creation instead of destruction. We could teach you," Lisa Rodriguez added. "We could show you how to work with other species instead of hunting them. You could be explorers like us, or builders, or scientists." Admiral Phillips's voice came through the communication system. "The choice is yours, Commander. You can continue this hunt and face the entire human fleet, or you can try something new. We're offering you partnership instead of war." Zethkar looked around at his warriors. Many of the younger ones were staring at the human fleet with something that looked like wonder rather than hunger. They had never seen anything like this coordinated display of nonviolent strength. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Jake's expression remained calm. "Then you'll learn why humans have survived on a planet where everything was trying to kill us for millions of years. You'll discover what happens when prey decides to become predators." The threat was delivered quietly, but every Cathara in the fleet understood its meaning. These humans were not weak or helpless. They were choosing to be peaceful, but they were fully capable of war if forced into it. Commander Zethkar made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. All ships, stand down. End combat protocols. He looked directly at Jake Morrison. Human, you offer us something we have never had. Time to think about what we could become instead of what we have always been. That's all we ask, Jake replied. And so the greatest hunt in Cathara history ended not with death, but with the beginning of something entirely new. The galaxy's deadliest hunters had discovered that there were more rewarding pursuits than hunting. And humanity had proven that sometimes the best way to survive is to offer your enemy a better path forward. The age of the hunters was ending, and the age of cooperation was about to begin.